First off, I want to say that I've been brought up with stories of ghosts and haunted houses. I live in the South, Louisiana to be exact, and tales of the supernatural are nothing new to this area. I have many stories I can share, but the better ones all include my grandma's house. The house is located in a small town called Swords, and my mom would tell me stories of when she was a kid growing up with a ghost that lived there in the house with her and her siblings. The ghost does not have a name. She is only known as the White Lady, since she wears a white dress. My mom told me stories of seeing this White Lady many times as a child, but she never was scared of the White Lady. She told me she felt as if the ghost was watching over her and her sisters, and that they never felt threatened. She told me she would see the ghost at night, walking in the hallway or on the staircase. Other times she just felt the presence of the ghost. She would be in her room after school doing homework, and she knew someone was in the room watching her. When I was a kid, going to grandma's was always something special because I would look for this ghost. I remember very well the first time I saw the White Lady. I was 14, and my friend Chad was with me in my grandma's. We had just gotten home from school, and I had the key to grandma's because that's where I went after school until my mom picked me up when she got off work. Grandma was not there, so Chad and I made ourselves at home. He knew of the stories about the house and was very skeptical. We made some snacks and went into the den to sit and watch TV. The staircase is in full view from the den, and as we watched TV, I felt a presence. Chad felt it too. He claimed it got really cold. I thought it was a draft, so we went into the hallway and checked to see if any windows were open. As we were going to the living room, my eye caught something. I stopped and grabbed Chad's arm. There, at the bottom of the staircase, was a figure of a woman. At that moment, she looked at us, and that cold chill went right through me. She proceeded to go up the stairs. I watched her details. Her hand was on the banister, but you could see right through it. She was transparent all the way through her figure, and she looked up as she walked, as if looking for something. Chad and I were literally paralyzed. We watched her, not knowing what was going to happen. For a second there, the figure paused, glanced back at us, and then continued walking up, but she never made it to the top. She vanished on the fourth step just before the landing. When she disappeared, Chad ran up the steps. I guess he wanted to catch her? Idiot. He said the spot where she disappeared was so cold. At that point, I wanted to get out of the house. We both grabbed our book bags and ran outside and stayed out on the front porch until my mom came. We told her what happened, and she told us not to be scared. This being our first time seeing the spirit, hell yeah, we were scared. But Mom came in the house with us, and we felt better with her there. The second time I saw the White Lady was Thanksgiving, 1997. I had not been to Grandma's much before then. Things at my house got complicated, and I had to take care of things, so there was not much time left for visits. But then, Thanksgiving did roll around, and all of my family came to Grandma's. My mom has 10 siblings, so it was quite the event. Grandma has a huge dining room table that seats 24 in the main room of her house. We were all sitting down at dinner, having a good time. I was between my Uncle Kevin and my cousin Joseph. We call him Shags. People were coming and going through the doors that led to the kitchen, and clean out of nowhere, I looked up and I saw a lady, wearing white, come in from the door on the right, and walk from there to the left side of the room, then disappear into the wall. I jumped up. I was startled. She had passed right by everyone and right through my Uncle Patrick, who was standing by the wine cart. He didn't even flinch. I looked over to my mom. She saw her too, but she put her finger on her mouth, mentioning me to keep quiet. I didn't say anything, but Shags was nudging me under the table. I turned to him, and he whispered to me, "Did you see that?" I told him yes. After dinner, I was helping Grandma with the dishes, and I told her what I saw. She saw her too, but she said it did not surprise her at all. The White Lady likes to show up when there are a lot of people at the dinner table. All she does is walk from one side of the room to the other, then disappear into the wall. But not everyone sees her. That's what I find odd. I told her how she just walked through Pat, and he didn't notice anything. Weird. A number of days later, I found out that only 4 other people saw her that day in the dining room. My Aunt Jen, my cousin Brad, his girlfriend Ashley, and my aunt's husband Mark. Grandma told me that they phoned her and told her about the white lady. I haven't seen the white lady since that Thanksgiving day. Grandma says she's still around. She had company over this past September. Some friends had come from Florida and stayed the night there. They witnessed the white lady on the staircase disappearing, but something else occurred. Grandma and others are now hearing footsteps and laughter in the upstairs bedroom that is used as a drawing room. I'll have to do some investigating on that one. Thanks for reading. When I was about 13, my father was a professor at a college in California. The campus was built during the 1600s and was originally a Catholic boys' home. There are catacombs where the boys would hide when people came to persecute them. The story goes that one particular night, a well-known Christian hater came to kill the boys. They all went down into the tunnels. One 8-year-old boy got lost and was so scared he hung himself. His body was never recovered. Anyway, back to my personal story. We lived on campus, and my father was also on night guard. He had a tendency to get preoccupied with different things, and he often didn't get home until an hour after his shift was over. On one particular night, he was later than usual. My mother sent me to go check on where he was. The other guards said he was still on the rounds, so I rode my bike around looking for him. I saw a light on in the library, so I parked my bike and went in. The staircase to the aforementioned tunnels, or catacombs, is in the back of the library, off to the left, and there's a cemetery under the staircase. I looked all through the library, and suddenly, the light turned off. A little boy, about 8 years old, came running through the door of the staircase, right where another certain 8-year-old's body was rumored to be. Needless to say, I hauled out of there, and I have not gone back in the library since. The first thing I must explain is that I lived in a place where there was a horrible fire in the late 1800s. Across from my house was a cemetery where all of the 800 people that perished in that fire were buried. My best friend had come over, and we were wanting to be alone, so we scampered up to our room. Shortly after that, we began to hear strange noises, like footsteps running up and down our spiral staircase. We yelled to my sister to stop bothering us, but she was nowhere in sight. We closed the door and backed up our trunks against it. While we sat there, a patterned knocking sound began on the wall. An eerie feeling came over us, and we no longer felt safe there. We rushed out of the door, and the room was filled with blue smoke. I never ventured up there alone again. It's strange that everything weird that ever happened in my bedroom, because there was another night I remember vividly. The night I saw a figure dressed in a red and blue checkered smock standing there. She smiled and waved, but then, when I went to touch her, she disappeared. Thank you for letting me share my experience. My friend would love you for it. It's important to be able to share these experiences. I don't think their ghosts were unfriendly, but they sure scared the living daylights out of me. Thanks for reading. This is a story that my mom told me about when my grandma worked as a maid for a rich family in England. The house she worked in was haunted, and some really weird things happened there. The most interesting was whenever someone cooked bread in the oven, it would come out smeared with blood. So after that happened several times, they blocked off the kitchen with a wall. Another neat thing happening occurred there when my grandma woke up in the middle of the night and heard the table being set, but then she found out that no one was up and it was the middle of the night. To make things even more creepier, whenever she was cleaning the 3rd floor and she knew that no one was up there with her, she got the strangest feeling she wasn't alone. One night, a thunderstorm was so loud it woke her up, yet her room was the only one that had the thunder that could be heard. Another night she woke up and her bed was rocking. In the morning, she asked the people who owned the house about it, and they said that her room was once the room of a young boy who became very sick, and every night his mother would rock him to sleep. Interesting story, and thank you for reading. The story I'm about to tell happened when I was about 15. For the last month or so, when we talked on the telephone, my friend had been telling me that during the middle of the night, when he was in bed, he could hear rocks bouncing off the roof, and this would go on for hours every single night. His parents also heard this and would go outside during the middle in the dark night to find nothing. Needless to say, it kept happening night after night. As time went by, the events got worse. Mr. Knock Knock, as they called him, started knocking on the door in the middle of the night and also during the day, which of course, when they would go to look, nobody was there. At this point, I didn't know if I believed him or not. One time, when I was talking to him on the telephone, I heard a really big boom, and he told me, "Oh my God, Mr. Knock Knock just knocked the door open." Of course, he went and looked, but as always, nobody was there. This got me excited. I said to him I want to stay over and hear Mr. Knock Knock. Now, I don't know if it was that night, but I did stay over. It was late in the afternoon, and we were in the kitchen, and I made the remark that I wanted to hear Mr. Knock Knock. Right after I said that, boom on the door. We went outside and found nothing. Finally, they had the police install cameras around the whole house, mostly in the trees, but they never recorded anything. They say that a man many years before hung himself in the shed. The same events went on for a period of time, then they just stopped. I think it was the man who hung himself many years ago. I know it was some spirit, but what it wanted, I don't know. I hope you all enjoyed the story though. Thanks for reading. The following incident is significant because it put me on the path where I am today, and it will be important to know when I submit my other stories. On Saturday, Halloween Day, 1992, my friend Debbie and I decided to go to a neighborhood park in St. Louis, bordering on South Grand and Arsenal, for those who hail from there. We'd stop at our favorite donut shop, then went to a little lake we knew of to sit and gossip. There happened to be a wedding photo group there at the same time, so we sat on a bench nearby and critiqued the dresses, etc. I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings, and Debbie and I chatted for about 15 minutes before she got an odd look on her face and whispered to me, "What is this? A rumble?" I cautiously glanced around and saw several youths drawing up to the lake on various sides. Debbie said, "I think it's time we leave. Walk slowly and don't look back at them." We got up and began walking to my car. Some 300 yards off, we got about halfway there when we heard a pop, pop, pop. Being a city girl, it didn't register in my brain what it was at the moment. It sounded like firecrackers. Needless to say, that's not what it was. "Get down!" she screamed. Before I could react, Debbie had thrown me down on the ground as she was going down herself. I know we were both praying as this occurred. Suddenly, the shooting got louder, and we both realized that there was a gunman firing about 3 feet behind me, over our heads. The way we were lying on the ground, Debbie could see behind me, and I could see behind her. She told me not to look, so I just kept my head down. We heard clicking and cursing. The guy's gun jammed. He ran off. As suddenly as it began, it was over, and all the gang members were running their separate ways. Badly shaken but not hurt, we took off running to my car, jumping in and flooring it to our house a few blocks away. When we were safely inside and slightly more calm than we had been, Debbie said, "I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. I was warned about this and I didn't listen." I asked what she meant. She said her father appeared to her in a dream the night before. I don't remember the details exactly, but it was in the kitchen with the back door open. In the dream, He was warning her about some danger and wanted her to be careful. Debbie's father died when she was a teenager. At the time of the occurrence, she was in her late 20s. A weird, though not really scary closure. At the time of this occurrence, Debbie and I worked together at a local newspaper, and our office was based in the basement of City Hall, sharing a room with the office attached to Recorder of Deeds. 4 ladies worked for the city there, and we knew them pretty well. On Monday morning, one of them described how her daughter had come to her on a previous Saturday afternoon and told her of the horrific shootout that occurred at her friend's wedding party in the park near the lake. No one was hurt, but the limo took 2 slugs in the door and fender. Prior to the shooting, both Deb and I would have long discussions about the afterlife, ghosts, and etc. And we are both believers in the power of the mind and spirit. But this experience set me on a path of dealing with spirits that I still encounter today. These will be submitted for your approval at a later date. Back in 1986, when my daughter was 3 years old, she was playing in her bedroom and I was watching all my children on television, when all of a sudden, she came out of her room asking me to tell the man to leave her alone. Startled because she and I were the only ones in the house at the time, I said, "What man?" She said, "The man in my room. He keeps talking to me." So I got up and went into the room and looked for this man. In fact, I decided to look all over the house for this man and could not even find him. I then made sure all the doors and windows were locked, and I told my daughter that there is no man in the house, so she went back to playing. About 10 minutes later, she came back into the living room and announced, "Tell the man to leave me alone." This time I freaked out and told her, "Dana, there's no man in the house. I looked everywhere for him. I do not see anyone here." And she replied to me, "He's right here." I asked, "Where?" And she pointed to the hallway, and she acted like she was holding someone's hand. I asked, "What are you doing?" She replied, "He just wants to say hi to you." Incredulous and open-mouthed, I asked, "Me?" What happened next sent chills down my spine. My 3-year-old daughter walked with this man to the wall, as if she was still holding his hand. I asked her, "What did this man want from you?" She said, "He says he loves you." I asked her for the man's name, and she simply replied, "Monk." Almost in shock, I got out, "What did you say?" She looked up at this man and said, as if to the air, "What did you say your name was?" And then she once again looked back at me and said, "Monk." I asked her several times if the man's name was Monk, and every time she said yes. But then I was freaking out, because my grandfather's nickname was Monk. Still not believing, I told her this isn't funny, and she said, "He just wanted me to tell you he loves you, and he wanted to say hi." I asked her to describe him, and then he described my grandfather to a T. You see, my grandfather died in 1969 in Illinois when I was 4 years old. It was so long ago, there is no way my 3-year-old could possibly have known this. He couldn't have even seen what he looked like because he did not have any pictures of him until 1991. That was the only time my child had an encounter. But what encounter it was. And I'm left to scratch my head thinking if it was actually my grandpa or not. I'd like to think it was, but at the time, it was so terrifying not knowing who this person was at the moment. Wasn't it a intruder? Was it someone else? But no, it was my grandfather, checking in on me to see if I was okay. What a man he was. A former associate and friend told me this once. Her parents once lived in Leemaster, a little hollow in Buchanan County. While they lived there, they could hear a baby crying outside. When they went out on the porch, it would stop, but as soon as they went back in, it would start again. This went on for a long time, until one day, a bunch of young boys were digging in the dirt, playing with their trucks and such, when they happened upon an old buried jar. After further inspection by the children and my friend's father, They found it contained the remains of a baby submerged in alcohol to keep it in good condition. Turns out, a young girl had once lived in the area and had a miscarriage. Instead of having a proper funeral, she put it in the alcohol and buried it afterwards. After the discovery by the children, the crying stopped, the baby found peace, and all was quiet again. Thanks for the short read. Hey guys, hope you're listening to this outro, because I'm sure not, because I'm recording it. Anyway guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much again for joining me on this journey of paradise through the realm of horror narrations and welcoming in a new dawn of era called absolutely nothing at all. What the hell am I talking about these days, guys? Who knows? Anyway, if you guys love my random babble, please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and even share this video. I'm sorry that I didn't get this video out yesterday, working my day job all day, and then on Labor Day, it just doesn't make any sense because, the irony of Labor Day, you're not even supposed to work. You're supposed to honor the workers who have been working there. And I guess they don't honor me, so I guess I was working all day. Just kidding. With the animals, they call my name, I need to protect them. And I can't just neglect the animals. They'll turn into ghosts, and I'll have to narrate a story about that. So I guess, I don't know. We keep them alive, we need to. Anyway, forget what I'm talking about. This is not important. Just remember, share, like, comment, subscribe. But really, guys, I really wanted to thank you for actually tuning in and listening to my stories. I really love doing this, and it's really a joy to be able to, read stories for you guys and publish them on a platform for you guys to actually listen. And it's crazy to think that people actually still listen to my crappy narrations. So, we can, deal with that. I'm not Pewds. I'm not the Pewds, so I can't narrate like him, right? I'm gonna go, guys. Okay. Like I said, love you guys, and good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next video.